The rise of mental health issues around the world, anxiety, depression, seems to be just boof, 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 like it's going from strength to
Exponential.
strength when it's not a positive thing. Like,
No,
yeah, your
no.
insights on that at the moment?
I think it's sort of a culmination of a few things. I think there's a heightening of the ego kind of coming to its own demise, right? As consciousness becomes more evolved and more aware, and there's conversations like this, courtesy of you having these great platforms where you speak to people that bring more insight and awareness to the masses. So I think people are becoming more aware, which ironically can seem to heighten the constraint that was previously blind spot, right? So it's sort of, if you think about emptying a closet as a very basic analogy, that you haven't addressed for a while, or an attic that has been untended to for many years. Okay, you were oblivious to it, and then you start to open it and pull it all out into the living room. You're like, holy shit, like I've got a bunch of stuff here that's really, both redundant and old and moldy and disgusting. So I think there's an increased awareness of some of these constraints that people deal with. So that's one part of it. But I do think the last sort of 4 to 5 years of what we experience globally with, whether you call it a pandemic or a plandemic, I tend to lean towards the latter. That people have been put under an immense amount of duress where the primal urges that we talked about earlier really got threatened. And I would say that's part of the mass psychosis of the powers that be. This is a very formulaic way of having mass control, right? Like you create fear, and how did they do that? By saying that there's something out there that's very dangerous, and it's even worse, you can't see it, right? It's on your Amazon boxes, and it's all over the place in the form of this invisible threat. Then so now you've got people scared, and then the next part is you challenge the sense of belonging that we touched on earlier, right? Because, well, you can't see your loved ones, you have to have 6 feet distance, you can't get near people. So now you've got, strike two in terms of these primordial needs of what it is to be human. Then we lean into the other one that's very, very close to people's heart, which is their own sense of worth and value. And you get told that you're non essential, or that people get laid off. And so when you challenge those three things, which is we want safety, we want connection, and we want a sense of worth, and they're all stripped, then people are going to go into complete panic and despair. So I think much of what we're experiencing now, definitely as these mental disorders and diseases tend to become exponentially worse, is because people are still sitting on the foundation of these primordial needs that were stripped away, and haven't yet returned to what's beneath all of the facades and the propaganda, and recognize, oh, hang on a minute, I'm actually okay. I've always been okay, and I'm always going to be okay. So that's why I'm so passionate about my work, to help people dissipate and dissolve all of the suffering, so that they can return to, the true freedom and peace that is their divine birthright.
Some part of me harbors this awareness that maybe it's all spiraling out of control. Like we were discussing, breakdown to breakthrough. Like there's a collective kind of whoa, 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 whoa before it just
Yeah.
pops through. I don't know if that's a safe awareness to carry. Do you share that sentiment? What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I think that's why I said sort of the first part. I think it's the evolution of consciousness itself, right? Awareness is bringing light to that which was previously in the wings and blind spots to people. So I think there is, apart from the Great Reset and the powers that be, whether it's the World Economic Forum and all of these clowns out there, that they're really inspiring the Great Awakening, and so that to me is really, yeah, what's at play, and why again, there's so many people like myself who are committed to having these kind of conversations, so it can shift people from a perspective of victimhood and despair and desperation into one of authorship and true, becoming the warrior, WOR, as opposed to, now becoming a warrior, WAR, right? And that to me is sort of the transition that we're in, going from anxiety into a place of peace, and going from a place of separation into unity, going from a place of dis-ease into vitality, and really stepping out of the world of, disharmony and abuse into the world of love and acceptance.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well, then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.